Over the last few years, we have built out our Southern States Initiative to support LGBTQ inclusion across workplaces in the American South. We convene businesses and workplace advocates at events and generate practical resources that reflect the culture of the South and business needs. The states that make up this wide swath of the country are the very states that do not have basic non-discrimination protections for the LGBTQ community in employment, housing, public services, and other key aspects of life. At the same time, there are many businesses committed to LGBTQ inclusion. One such leader we have had the privilege to work with is manufacturing innovator Milliken, based in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Under the leadership of CEO Halsey Cook, the company has worked with our team and taken a deliberate approach to aligning its values of inclusion to permeate every level of the organization. Halsey sat down with Out and Equal CEO Aaron Uritis, whose career spans a number of transformational change initiatives, to talk about what leadership looks like today and how supporting employees and business strategy are in fact one and the same. The American South presents rich opportunities for deepening LGBTQ and ally engagement in workplaces to address the everyday realities of working and living in this region. We hope to see you at our next Milliken-hosted virtual Southern Forum this December 4th, a space to connect, hear from thought leaders, exchange best practices, and ensure that y'all truly means all.
Hello, Halsey. Thanks so much for joining us today for this important conversation about transformational culture change through the unique Southern lens. We have come to know you and your leadership well through Out and Equal's important work together in our Southern Forum. And we're excited to feature Milliken's journey at Summit this year. So thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Summit.
It is a great pleasure to be with you today. And I'm sorry we can't be actually sitting by a fireside for this chat, but we'll do the best we can.
We'll do it another time. I look forward to that. So listen, let me start by stating the obvious that the cultural and political and economic context we have all been working in for the last few years, at the very least, one might say it's been very exciting, but sometimes complicated and challenging. All companies have a beginning to this work. So why was it important to begin this journey in LGBTQ inclusion at Milliken? And was there a specific catalyst for why you started this initiative overall?
Well, I think the catalyst went back to a document that was made by the shareholders about 8 years ago, I guess, and they really took time to talk about the type of company that they wanted Milliken to be. And it's called the Vision, Values, and Expectations of the Shareholders. But in it, they laid out what was really a treatise for true stakeholder inclusion. And in it, they talked about being a company with purpose, values-led, and which I think Milliken always has been. But they went on to enumerate that they really wanted the company to stand for integrity, and they wanted the company to stand for diversity and inclusion. And taking that cue, my predecessor and Craig Hademak started, who's our CHRO, put together a plan to start making much more specific and concrete steps towards diversity and inclusion, and appointed Rike Harris, our Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And once we put, you guys know Rike, and once you put a star athlete on an issue, things start to move. So she had been getting some momentum going. We launched first the associate support groups, and that was done, I guess, in June of 2018 or so. And I came into my role in September of 2018. So it's been 2 years, and I would say that kickoff had produced some momentum, and it's been my pleasure to really just kind of fan those flames and move the company forward on that journey.
Yeah, no, that's great. And let's start with, I come from a transformational kind of change management background, and what I know to be true, and you do too, is that this kind of change often comes with resistance and kind of inherent challenges. Did you experience any resistance or particular challenges, and how did you deal with that, or how did you address those challenges?
One thing that we did, so I think the first question you had was, did we experience any challenges or resistance? I didn't see a lot of overt resistance, but of course, it's the silence in the room when you talk about the initiative and the things people don't say, which is often the biggest issues that you're encountering on diversity and inclusion. And I would say the challenge is, how do you make an initiative around diversity and inclusion absolutely core and mission critical for the company at large? And so we took a step back when I first came in, because one of the first things that in my discussions with the board we decided was a priority was to set a strategic direction for the next 10 years and generate some goals. And, myself and the leadership team started talking about where we want to go and how we want to get there, and quickly realized that we really needed to do some of the foundational work around purpose and the mission of the company and the values that we see. And I thought that was especially important because we had this vision, value, and expectations document from the shareholders, but we didn't have the response of management. They had said, this is the type of company we want you to be. We had not yet articulated the type of company we wanted to be. And it was easy just to adopt that and say, this is what the shareholders wanted. I thought we needed to look a little bit deeper into that. So when we looked deeper into that, we got to the challenge of really defining the values of a 155-year-old industry-leading company with a lot of accolades and a wonderful history of innovation, quality, and a lot of other things. And when we defined those values, we put people at the core as a lead value. And that's the development of people, because people would provide the talent for everything else to become available. And what came out from that was the other values of integrity, of excellence, of innovation, and of sustainability, all relied on that people piece. And when we started to talk about, well, how do we make sure we have the very best workforce and the best talent, it became an imperative to attract the best talent regardless of whatever sexual orientation they had, whatever religion, whatever color they were, whatever part of the world they came from, to the company. And by doing that, we really made the diversity and inclusion piece of it core to the business strategy of the company.
That's fantastic. And those priorities that you set at the beginning, it sounds like aligning to your vision and values, getting engagement early on. That's fantastic. And now you've been at it for a while. So with any business strategy, like you said, there's learning and adjustment. With that learning and adjustment, what might some of your goals be moving forward?
Well, I think that just set the base for us, and then you've got to actually do the hard work and do the lifting. So, adding the LGBTQ to our associate programs for an advocacy and allyship those were some big specific steps, and Out and Equal helped a lot. I signed the CEO Pledge for Action, which said that I would check my biases and I would facilitate and encourage and even lead courageous conversations around diversity and inclusion. And then we had the event in October of last year, and I'm wearing the button from that event which says I'm in, and we did that on National Coming Out Day. And so each of our affinity groups was there, but in addition, we'd added LGBTQ. So we had one for veterans, we had a women's group, We had a minorities group. We had something called New Kids on the Block, because again, if the imperative for the business is to keep the talent, we find that we lose a lot of people culturally in the first year if they don't fit well with the culture. So we had New Kids on the Block, and to that we added LGBTQ. We had an executive who was passionate about it and joined as the executive sponsor, and we had allies as well, and we were able to kick that off. And that was really that was a new thing for the Spartanburg community in the upstate of South Carolina. But since then, we've had a lot of companies contact us and want to know how they could get started and kind of work with us on moving their own programs forward.
Well, thank you for that. And that's really music to our ears, because whenever a company leadership faces specific kind of cultural nuances or challenges and stands up and begins to do this work, you do serve as a really important inspiration for other companies. And so that is fantastic. And congratulations on your ERG setup. That's really, really important. So Halsey, what does it look like?
Hey, thank you, Aaron. And if I may, now that I've talked about my button, in this non-air-conditioned room in South Carolina, I'm going to take off my jacket, if that's okay.
No worries. We want you to be comfortable. So,
okay.
So Halsey, tell me, what do you think it looks like to achieve a true culture of belonging for LGBTQ employees in the South?
I think what we're after is that people can be authentic, that they can be themselves, that they feel like they can speak and say whatever's on their mind. Diversity works for businesses when people actually do contribute and do bring different thoughts. And so we've got to create an environment where everybody feels safe to speak. So I find that in almost any relationship you can talk about, personal or business, between customers, between colleagues, it comes down to trust. And you've got to know that you're in a place where you can say what you want to say and contribute to the best of your ability, and not be in a position where you're going to get weird sideways glances and why are you speaking and things like that. So that's our goal, is really to create the environment where people can be authentic, can operate like they belong there, and contribute to their fullest potential.
And hopefully to your bottom line and overall.
Well, it is all connected. It is all connected. And as you know, there's been a lot of studies about companies who innovate best are more profitable, and a lot of studies about how diversity just creates better answers in business. And so while we're kind of programmed to go to comfort zones and be around people who might think like us and look like us, we have to do everything as a business and as business leaders to get people as comfortable as possible with getting out of those natural comfort zones and speaking their mind in environments that maybe don't look like them exactly, and do it with confidence.
Yeah, fantastic. So Halsey, from our vantage point, we have the privilege of getting to hear stories for decades now about how leaders become allies. And if you're willing to share yours, I'm just wondering, what motivated you to be kind of an active supporter and proponent of these initiatives within Milliken? And as CEO, what is your role in ensuring these efforts continue to be successful?
Well, it comes from a values place. It comes from the way I want to live my life and the type of person I want to be, and that has always included being inclusive and welcoming people as their own person, not as whatever biases or stereotypes I have and hang on it. And so, I grew up in an urban environment with a lot of different shades of face color and have always kind of held that belief. My parents were very strong on those points about being inclusive and the questions little kids ask about why somebody's skin is different, and they answer those questions in the right way. And so I think it was that personal belief and also seeing the opportunity at Milliken where we had ownership to go as fast and as far as we want to make sure that we create an environment of equality where people can contribute to their best abilities, and that means that we've got to create a culture that welcomes diversity. That was the only way that was going to happen. So for me, it was just something that lined up at this point in my life, and we saw it also as a mission critical part of the business, and we're able to construct that. So all stakeholders, I think, were involved. I think my role in that was to set the pace, give the rationale and the North Star to the initiative. But I've been very fortunate to have this fantastic team, and I think a culture inside of Milliken that was ready to do it as well. And so I do have this pledge, and I think that's part of the leader's role, is when you see something that is not in line with the kind of company we want to be culturally and where we want to go, you've got to call it out. And sometimes that's with a private conversation, sometimes that's in public, just saying that, hey, that's not the way we work. And so monitoring that and moving forward. I also have a responsibility to get the resources in place, because you can talk about these things all day long, but it's a lot of heavy lifting and interactions and events and rewards and conversations, and it really needs to be part of the work day in, day out to make sure that we're actually moving forward on that. And ultimately, you need to be able to produce some numbers and some metrics, although I find just running after the metrics is not a recipe for success. So I think as a leader, you've got to understand that there's a lot of real interactions that have to happen, and also that you've got a programmatic approach to it.
Fantastic. So you talked about your team, which we agree they are fantastic, and it's clear that you all have not just a great relationship, but the kind of dialogue where you're really all in this initiative together. So that's fantastic as other companies look to you. Halsey, we have a lot of people that come to Summit that are working within our ERGs and working up the chain to influence change and LGBTQ acceptance and equality in their companies. As someone in your position, what would you say to employees at these companies who are trying to encourage their senior leaders to support and champion the initiatives, but which may have a slightly more uphill climb in terms of influencing their leadership?
I think an organization like Out and Eagle or the CEO Action Pledge is a good place to start if somebody's trying to take baby steps with their leadership, because you get a very defined and crisp statement of what you're asking your CEO to buy into. And those are generally very well constructed and thoughtful to try and get people to buy in. And then you see a long list of very successful companies and successful CEOs that have already taken that step forward. And so I think there's a kind of a sense of security in that from somebody who's not sure if they're stepping into a place where they might open themselves up to criticism. I think the business case around having a healthy diversity and inclusion program is extremely powerful too. So, and there's an increasing number of examples in ESG and companies that are, enthusiastically embracing diversity. I think the tech sector has really shown us the way in a lot of different places, and it helped older manufacturing companies like Milliken, I think, have the confidence to do it as well. But talent is getting harder to find. We see the impact that high quality individuals can have. If you're excluding any group from your applicant pool, you are just not going to be long-term as successful a company. And I think any CEO and leader would buy into that logic. So I would say just keep, be persistent, and it will come, because my sense is the tidal shift in the business world is becoming very evident in terms of that type of thinking.
Well, we agree. And I think, again, the efforts you have locally do reverberate and set an inspiration for others. How do you think, Halsey, companies like Milliken and others can work together to achieve greater LGBTQ inclusion in the South?
There is, I think, a lot of benefit to doing things as a group. So we recently sponsored a Black Lives Matter mural in downtown Spartanburg. There were a couple other companies with us. They are leading companies. We had some conversations and made sure that we asked everybody that we thought would be an influence maker to join into that. And they could say yes, they could say no. But the fact that those sorts of events are underwritten by some leading employers, I think, is important. And I think it's much stronger than one company doing it. So best practice sharing and getting out and learning about other companies' programs, you really get a critical mass. And so I would say a real best practice is don't try and do this alone. You've got to seek organizations like Out and Equal, and you've got to seek other companies that want to go on this journey as well.
Fantastic. And we're glad you're working with us. We are really looking forward to companies like Milliken becoming involved in our digital hub, which is where where we've created the centralized space for best practice sharing. And as you and the company are working in your journey, please come back and share your learnings, not just within the hub, but of course at summits in the future. And thank you, Halsey, so much for the support of our Southern.
Absolutely. And I'll just add, we've taken some initial steps, and I think we've got a good foundation because the ideas line up and the strategies in place to take this forward. We're just now in the chapter, really today and in the last month, we've started adding some people, because what we've done has been primarily in our managerial, executive, science, marketing space, really the admin. And now we're moving out into our 46 plants around the world. And that represents well over 80% of our associates out there. So this is a new part of the journey, which is got many more challenges, but we're excited about that. And I think when you talk about the Southeast and think about it, typically it's associated with manufacturing. So if we can get this right, I think it's going to make us a stronger company, and it's going to give a lot of opportunities for some people who perhaps felt excluded in the past.
Absolutely. Again, Halsey, thank you so much for your leadership. We're really looking forward to people at Summit understanding the Milliken journey, and we're just delighted to spend time with you today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Erin. It's a real pleasure to spend some time with you.
You too.
So we're very excited and proud at Milliken that we will be virtually hosting the Southern States Forum here on December 4th. We hope that you can come join us for this great event.